Admiral Jake Morrison hovered within the command center of the orbital research station above Jupiter's moon Europa. Beyond the reinforced glass, he observed the most bizarre spacecraft he'd ever seen. The USS Phantom didn't look built. It looked conjured from shadow. Its surface twisted and absorbed light, warping vision and making it difficult to stare at directly. Dr. Lisa Parker reviewed her monitors for what felt like the 100th time. She had poured 5 years of her life into this project, and today, they would finally see it tested. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scanned the data. "All systems nominal, Admiral," she reported, steadying her voice. "Dark matter engines are fully operational. The Phantom wasn't like any craft engineered by human or alien hands. Traditional ships required vast fuel reserves and complex propulsion systems to leap between stars. The Phantom didn't. Its energy came from dark matter, the elusive, invisible force thought to fill most of the cosmos. While no other civilization had figured out how to tap into it, humans had cracked the code, turning it into the most advanced propulsion ever imagined. Commander Paul Baker headed toward the docking bay where the Phantom waited, quiet and intimidating. He had been chosen to pilot the first jump hand, though a seasoned pilot of every human ship design. He felt a nervous thrill unlike anything. Before, the ship's hum was strange, omnipresent, as if the sound originated from every corner of the bay and none at all. "Ready, Commander?" Morrison's voice came over the radio. "Gosh, as ready as I'll ever be, sir," Baker replied. Stepping onto the Phantom's bridge, the interior was as alien as the exterior. Walls shimmered and pulsed subtly, and the consoles emitted a soft blue glow. Engineer Kate Sullivan had spent 3 relentless years designing the Phantom's internal systems, especially the dangerous but groundbreaking dark matter engine. "Remember," Kate's voice crackled through the intercom. "This drive doesn't behave like standard engines. You won't feel motion. Space will shift around the ship." Baker nodded, settling into the pilot's seat and touching the step. Glowing control surface, destination appeared, a 0.3 light-years away. In ordinary ships, even at top speed, that distance took months. But the Phantom wasn't bound by traditional rules. It was built to cover it in seconds. "Beginning jump sequence," Baker announced. The space surrounding the vessels seemed to ripple.
Ow.
Reality distorted as the dark matter engine formed its signature field, a bubble of warped physics. Stars. Outside, stretched and twisted, Baker watched in awe. The ship wasn't flying through space. It was bending space itself, collapsing the distance in a shortcut through the void. Everything went black. Total stillness. He felt like a thought, floating without form. Then stars reappeared, but they weren't the same stars from before. The computer confirmed what Baker had already sensed. "We've traveled 3 light-years. In under 10 seconds, he said, stunned, now entering Tau Ceti's system. Back at the station, Dr. Parker stared wide-eyed at her readings. The Phantom had indeed moved faster than light, but not through movement. It had vanished from one point and reappeared in another, skipping the in-between entirely. Changes. "Everything," Morrison murmured. "If more ships like the Phantom could be made, humanity could cross the galaxy almost instantly." For millennia, the Galactic Council had monopolized space travel with ships capable of weeks-long interstellar flights. It gave them power. But now, humanity had created a ship that made their vessels seem like relics. Kate Sullivan ran diagnostics on the drive. The engine pulled clean, limitless energy from the dark matter saturating the cosmos. Fuel-guzzling ships, the Phantom could operate eternally, so long as dark matter existed, which was everywhere. "Commander Baker, return to base," Morrison ordered. "We need further testing." Baker initiated the return jump. Again, the universe folded around the ship. Moments later, the Phantom was back silent, sleek, hovering like a ghost born from night. Dr. Parker reviewed the data. Every system performed flawlessly. The test was a complete success. They had proven humanity could create faster-than-light vessels. Now, they had to decide how to use that power. "Admiral," she said, "I suggest we begin production immediately. If the Galactic Council learns of this, they won't be pleased." Morrison gave a grim nod. The Council had always viewed humans as minor players barely worth notice. But now, Humans had tech that could shake the balance of power. The Council wouldn't take it lightly. "Start drawing up production plans," he said. "We need to be ready for whatever happens next." As the Phantom docked, its hull still radiating strange energy, no one fully realized what had begun. This was the day humanity altered galactic history. The age of human expansion had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Captain Ryan Clark now sat in the command seat of the USS Phantom as it cruised silently beyond the edge of human space. 3 weeks had passed since the trial jump. Now he led humanity's first official mission using the dark matter engine. His orders: explore nearby stars, make peaceful contact. Any alien ships they ran into were closely monitored. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple signatures on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from the tactical console. 12 ships, all significantly larger than ours. Captain Clark leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Can you identify them?" "They match profiles of Galactic Council vessels, Dominion Navy heavy cruisers, sir. The Dominion fleet was infamous across known space. Their ships boasted unmatched firepower and nearly impenetrable armor." Clark had studied their doctrines extensively during officer training, but he hadn't expected to encounter them this soon. "Open a channel," Clark ordered. "Time to make first contact." Aboard the Dominion flagship, Commander Thera stared at his sensor feed with rising unease. His ship's systems were feeding him data that made no logical sense. The vessel that had just appeared was reading as a power source unlike any they'd seen before. "Commander, the unidentified ship is utilizing dark energy fields," said his science officer. "Our analysis can't make sense of the readings." Thera narrowed all 4 of his eyes, gaze locked on the shifting display. In half a century of service, he had never encountered a craft like this one. Small, yes, but radiating exotic energy, far beyond what its size should allow. "Hail them," he snapped. "Demand their surrender." Back aboard the Phantom, the alien transmission echoed over the bridge, translated into English by the ship's systems. The voice was sharp, cold. "Authoritarian, unidentified vessel, you are in breach of Galactic Council law. Your technology is derived from forbidden sources, dark manipulation. Prepare to be boarded or destroyed." Clark's frown deepened. This wasn't diplomatic, it was aggressive. "This is Captain Ryan Clark of the United Earth Space Force. We are here on a peaceful mission of exploration. We mean no harm and have violated no law." "Your existence violates Council mandate," the voice snapped back. "Dark matter manipulation is considered highly dangerous. Surrender your ship for examination." Lieutenant Foster turned from her station. "Sir, all 12 ships are locking weapons. They're closing in." Clark made the call instantly. "Raise shields. Ready evasive protocols. Try to reopen comes." "Commander Thera," Clark said through the open channel, "we are not enemies. We're requesting peaceful dialogue to clear up any misunderstandings." But Thera had already decided this vessel was a threat. Its mere existence challenged the power of the Galactic Council. Any civilization wielding dark matter had to be contained. "All units," Thera ordered, "engage. Disable the ship intact for retrieval." Suddenly, beams of energy and explosive rounds filled the vacuum of space, converging on the Phantom. The Dominion cruisers unleashed calibrated bursts designed to disable, not annihilate. They aimed for engines, power nodes, communication arrays. But then something strange. The Phantom's defenses responded unlike any ship before it. Dark matter shielding didn't just block the attacks, it absorbed them. Every energy hit was redirected, converted, and fed into the ship's core systems. The kinetic rounds? They phased through the shields, ignored entirely. "Shields holding firm, sir," Foster reported, stunned. "Actually, we're gaining power. Their weapons are making us stronger." Clark watched the tactical feed. The alien ships kept firing, but it was useless. Phantom absorbed each volley like a sponge. Captain Foster said urgently, "We need to counter. They're not letting up." Clark didn't want escalation, only target propulsion. "We're not here to destroy, just to survive." The Phantom's torpedo bays lit up. Unlike standard munitions, these dark matter torpedoes were interdimensional, phasing through multiple layers of space. Dominion shielding was designed for conventional physics. It couldn't defend against weapons that existed outside of standard spacetime. The first torpedo struck a cruiser's aft section. The massive ship jolted and went dark, its drives instantly silenced. The next round hit another vessel's propulsion hub, then another. In mere minutes, 3 of the Dominion's deadliest cruisers were floating lifeless in the void. Commander Stera stared in disbelief at his dimmed control station. His one-sprout warship was crippled. Nothing made sense. How had this tiny ship neutralized them so easily? His cruiser had gone completely offline, weapons drained of power. The tiny human craft had dismantled his entire squadron effortlessly. All units, full retreat. Commander Sarah barked over the emergency frequency. Return to Council. Headquarters, Priority Alpha. The remaining Dominion vessels activated their emergency drives, vanishing into faster-than-light corridors headed for Council territory. Behind them floated 3 disabled warships and a shaken crew who would never forget the day they encountered humanity's new weapon. Captain Clark observed the enemy ship's retreat into hyperspace. There was no victory in his expression. This meeting had gone completely sideways, and its aftermath would echo across the galaxy. Transmit to Earth Command, Clark told his comms officer. Form them. We've made first contact with Council forces. It was hostile. As the Phantom pivoted and began its return to human-controlled space, Clark understood the magnitude of what had occurred. Humanity was no longer a mysterious fringe-dwelling species hiding in obscurity. They had just embarrassed one of the Council's most elite naval forces, and the galactic community would soon hear of it. News of the skirmish would spread through interstellar communication grids within days. Every major civilization would learn that a new power had emerged and that its ships wielded technology capable of making Council fleets obsolete. Clark stared into the endless stars and felt a weight settle in his chest. This was just the beginning. On Nexus Prime, the heart world of the Galactic Council, High Counselor Veltar stood in the center of the vast legislative chamber. He raised one long-fingered hand, signaling for quiet. The emergency summit had been called within hours of the Dominion's report. The chamber swelled with sound. Delegates from 47 alien species filled the arena, a kaleidoscope of forms, sizes, colors, and biologies. Silence. Veltar's voice rang out, amplified and translated through thousands of devices. We are facing a crisis without precedent in our 1,000-year history. The murmurs grew louder. A newly identified species, he continued, has demonstrated technology that renders our most sophisticated fleets ineffective. The chamber erupted. Chirps, clicks, ultrasonic vibrations, and digital tones filled the aura, an outpouring of confusion, fear, and outrage. Some delegates showed fear, others roared with anger, and a few quietly marveled at the possibilities. Council Intelligence Director Kree approached the platform. Her 4 reflective eyes glowed as she activated a holographic interface. Images from the recent battle appeared above the chamber, displaying the Phantom's engagement with Dominion forces. The evidence is undeniable, she announced. The humans have succeeded in weaponizing dark matter. Gasps and startled signals swept through the chamber, as they watched energy bolts strike the Phantom only to be absorbed instead of repelled. They saw dark matter torpedoes phase through shields like they weren't even present. Nonsense, shouted War Minister Thakran of the Hegemony, his Catonus exoskeleton vibrating with fury. Dark matter cannot be harnessed. Our best minds have tried for centuries. And yet, Kree replied calmly, here's the visual confirmation. Not only did the human ship survive, the assault had gained strength from it. 2 minutes, she added. 3 of our most powerful warships were disabled. Across the stars, deep within a fortified complex, under the White House. President Helen Davis sat in the Situation Room. Surrounding her were top-level advisors, military commanders, and scientific leaders. General Sam Mitchell, head of the newly minted Space Defense Force, stood at the center of the room, facing the president. Tension crackled through the atmosphere. Madame President, Mitchell said, We're picking up significant fleet activity across Council-controlled regions. All signs point to mobilization. Dr. Alex Turner, the theoretical physicist who had laid the groundwork for the dark matter engine project, examined a data feed silently. The Phantom's clash with the Dominion had exposed a truth the Council wasn't ready to face. Their entire technological base is fundamentally different, Dr. Turner explained in the White House briefing room. They rely on traditional physics, mass, and energy manipulation. Our dark matter systems work on principles they haven't even begun to understand. In practical terms, President Davis asked, focused. It means we have a decisive edge, Turner answered. To them, what we've built may as well be sorcery. But we can't forget they have thousands of ships. We've only just started. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Council's great chamber echoed with rising voices. Its debate had turned to open argument as representatives clashed over how to respond to the emerging human threat. The hegemony demanded immediate war. The Trade Federation proposed harsh sanctions. The Synthetic Collective pushed for strict technological lockdowns. This knowledge cannot be allowed to spread, thundered Ambassador Velketh of the hegemony. If others learn to command dark matter, the balance of power collapses. We could try diplomacy, suggested Councillor Murden of the Peaceful Alliance. These humans might be open to sharing knowledge. Sharing. Velketh's scales shimmered a warning red. They crippled our ships without provocation. That's not diplomacy. That's aggression. High Counselor Velter scrolled through tactical files, deep in thought. Technically, the humans had only fired after being threatened and surrounded, but the implications remained terrifying. Ships that rendered Council fleets irrelevant? How many of these vessels do they possess? He asked Director Cree. Unknown, sir, she replied. We've picked up unusual energy patterns near their home system, but dark matter distortion limits our readings. Can't get a clear picture. That wasn't entirely honest. In truth, humanity was working relentlessly to expand its fleet. Every orbital dock and planetary yard in the Sol system had pivoted to building dark matter ships. Dr. Parker's team trained new crews and shifts, working non-stop. We need more time, Admiral Morrison told President Davis in a secure channel. The prototype's flying and 3 others are nearly ready. But to field a real fleet, we need 60 days. And how long do we have, she asked. Morrison's expression darkened. Judging by Council fleet movements, 2 weeks, if that. On Nexus Prime, the Council reached its grim conclusion. War Minister Fakharin took the floor, projecting confidence. I propose a show of strength, he declared. We dispatch a fleet not to destroy, but to demonstrate Council power. They will submit once they understand our might. And if they refuse? Councillor Murden asked. Then we take their ships, analyze their tech. Sure, the galaxy remains stable, Fakharin answered coldly. The vote was close, but the Hawks carried it. A decision was made. 500 ships, the largest fleet in galactic history, would be sent to Earth. The message, obey or be overwhelmed. High Counselor Velter authorized the mission with visible reluctance. He had hoped for peace, but the generals insisted force was the only language humans respected. Command would fall to Warark Grolthok, the Council's most seasoned military leader. At the edges of Council-controlled space, the Armada began to assemble. Humanity, too, prepared. The stakes were nothing less than the galaxy's future. The Council was confident. Their numbers alone would win the day. But they had no idea what humanity had prepared, surprises that would defy every expectation. On the bridge of the USS Phantom, now flagship of Earth's newborn fleet, Admiral Jake Morrison stood watching the formation of humanity's last defense. Surrounding him, 49 other vessels floated like silent sentinels each, one a marvel of engineering, fusing human brilliance, and recovered alien theory. The new fleet represented everything Earth could spare. Every scientist, technician, and builder had contributed. Ships bore names that echoed their mysterious power. The USS Spectre. Under Colonel Danny Wright, drifted nearby. The USS Wraith, USS Mirage, USS Echo, and more formed a protective ring around Earth and Luna. Admiral long-range sensors detecting movement, Lieutenant Commander Rachel Green reported from her console. Council fleet is dropping out of FTL at the outer system boundary. Morrison gave a slow nod. They'd been expecting this moment. How many ships? He asked. Exactly 500, sir. Confirmed. This is the largest fleet in galactic records. The scale was staggering. 500 Council warships. 50 human vessels. By conventional metrics, it should have been a slaughter. But this wasn't going to be conventional. This wouldn't be a traditional battle. At the edge of the solar system, War Chief Grolthok stood at the center of the Nexus Emperador's massive bridge. It was the Council's greatest dreadnought over, 2 kilometers long, with the firepower to vaporize entire worlds. Surrounding it, ships from dozens of species stretched across the void, a wall of metal and light. Scan the system interior, Grolthok ordered. Find the human fleet. The readings that came back were baffling. Sensor sweeps lit up with strange energy returns, but nothing solid. Targets seemed to shift, fade, or vanish entirely. Their signatures are everywhere, sir, said the sensor chief. Approximately 50 ships, but they're unstable. It's as if they're phasing in and out of space. Exactly as Dr. Lisa Parker had planned. Over the last month, her team had pioneered a new form of dark matter shielding, not just for ships, but for Earth itself. The planetary defense matrix warped space-time locally, making human vessels and even the planet flicker across dimensions. They can't get a lock on anything in the inner system, Parker reported from the lunar base. The defense net is fully operational. On Earth, President Davis monitored the situation from the Planetary Command Center. The public was aware of the fleet's approach, but most didn't understand just how radically human defenses had evolved. Madame President General Mitchell said, "The Council fleet just initiated a system-wide transmission. Every screen, from Earth to the outer stations, lit up with a live feed." War Chief Grolthok's battle-scarred face filled the broadcast. His posture radiated confidence. This was a commander unaccustomed to failure. "Humans of the third planet," he began. "You have built weapons that destabilize galactic order. The Galactic Council demands your immediate surrender. You have 1 hour to deactivate your systems and prepare to be boarded. Refuse and your vessels will be seized by force." President Davis stepped forward. Her reply would not only reach the fleet, but echo across the entire known galaxy. "War Chief Grolthok," she said, "humanity does not seek war. Our technology was developed for peaceful exploration and self-defense. We are open to negotiation, but we will not surrender our independence to any external power." Then came silence. 1 hour of breathless tension. Both armadas made final preparations. Systems warmed, weapons checked, strategies finalized. The Council fleet arranged itself in standard combat configuration, dreadnoughts in the center, flanked by smaller escorts and cruisers. The human fleet remained scattered, cloaked in spatial distortion, its exact positions hidden by dark matter. Manipulation. When the deadline passed, War Chief Grolthok issued the order. Advance. The Council fleet surged forward like an approaching stormfront. Shields raised, weapon arrays active. "They've chosen violence," Morrison said. To his officers, all ships' battle stations. "Remember, our goal isn't total destruction. We're here to prove that attacking us is futile." Colonel Danny Wright, aboard the USS Spectre, watched the fleet advance through distorted space. "Sir," his sensor officer said, "they still can't track us properly. Targeting systems are misfiring. They're almost blind." The engagement began as the lead Council ships entered Mars orbit. From there, the outer solar system became a battlefield. At the system's edge, the human defense grid activated. A lattice of warped space-time bloomed to life, scattering Council sensor readings further into chaos. Several alien vessels fired blindly, striking illusions where they believed human ships hovered only to hit empty space. "This defies logic," muttered the Nexus Emperador's sensor chief. "They're everywhere and nowhere." The first direct hit came when the USS Shadow defessed behind a Council heavy cruiser. With its shields facing forward, The alien ship's engine core was fully exposed. A single dark matter torpedo surged forward and tore through the vessel's power systems, rendering it inert. More human ships emerged throughout the Council formation, striking propulsion arrays and weapons. Nodes then vanishing like ghosts. The Council fleet was under siege from enemies it couldn't lock onto, let alone hit. Redirect fire? Grolthok snapped. If we can't destroy their ship, stargate the planet, force them to defend it. Earth was protected too. When Council ships attempted to target the planet, they found it was unstable. The same space warping technology cloaked Earth in dimensional echoes. Targeting systems showed Earth in several positions at once, rendering every strike unreliable. The battle for Earth had begun. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. For 6 hours, chaos reigned. What the Council had expected to be a swift show of dominance collapsed into a catastrophic defeat. Admiral Morrison watched from the bridge of the USS Phantom as Council vessels spun lifeless across the solar system. Nearly half their fleet was disabled, their engines shredded by torpedoes that passed through shields like vapor. The rest found themselves lost in a labyrinth of gravitational eddies and folded space, able to coordinate, communicate, or even escape. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Green, "the Council flagship is attempting withdrawal, but it's stuck in one of our distortion fields near Jupiter." The Nexus Emperador, crown jewel of the Council Navy, rotated slowly, engines dark and systems flickering. Orchaf Grolthok stood rigid on his bridge, watching his proud fleet torn apart. In all his decades of war, he had never known such defeat. "How many ships remain?" he asked flatly. 237 still have power, sir," replied his tactical officer. "But most are immobilized. We can't escape. We can't fight." Across the system, Admiral Ryan Clark, newly promoted after his first contact, mission stood. Aboard the USS Wraith. He watched the Emperor drift across the void and gave a quiet order. His ship phased into existence directly beside the Council flagship, inside its shield radius. Something every Council commander believed impossible. "This is Admiral Clark of the United Earth Space Force," he transmitted. "Your fleet has been neutralized. I request your surrender to prevent further losses." Grolthok stared at the small, dark vessel beside his dreadnought. Compared to the Emperador, it was a speck of metal, but that speck had breached his defenses without warning, undetected, unchallenged. Its weapons could not lock onto it. His crew had no means to retaliate. "This is Warchef Grolthok of the Galactic Council," he replied at last. "I surrender my fleet." At each word tasted like ash. No Council fleet had ever yielded before. Nexus Emperador had never known defeat. But the truth was undeniable. The Council's greatest weapons were useless here. Across the solar system, other Council captains came to the same realization. Surrounded, crippled, outmatched, surrender became the only viable option. Admiral Morrison, aboard the Phantom, began coordinating the armistice. Powered down all systems and prepared to be escorted. Came the broadcast from Admiral Morrison: "Any ship that attempts escape will be disabled immediately." The aftermath of the battle echoed across the galaxy. The Council's own communications relays carried the footage to every corner of civilized space, the greatest fleet in galactic history, defeated by a species most worlds barely recognized. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Velter received report. After report in stunned silence, what was meant as a warning had turned into a humiliation. The Council had showcased its might only to expose its irrelevance. 500 ships against 50, he muttered. "And we lose." "How is this possible?" Director Kree answered grimly. "The humans don't fight by our rules. Our technology obeys laws we don't even comprehend. Our energy weapons, our shielding, none of it functions against dark matter manipulation." 3 days later, President Helen Davis stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Her speech was more than just an address to Earth. Captured Council networks now carried her voice to billions across the stars. "People of Earth and citizens of the galaxy," she began, "humanity has never desired conquest. We created our technology for defense and discovery, not for domination." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. But we will not surrender our independence to anyone. Not through threats, not through force. Looking into the camera now, broadcasting to 100-star systems, she continued, "We propose a new galactic era, one not built on control or fear, but on mutual respect. We invite all species to explore the stars with ESA's partners, not as rulers or subjects." The galaxy's response was immediate. High Counselor Velter himself asked for permission to travel to Earth to negotiate. The Council's military leaders were stunned into silence. Their politicians scrambled for answers. Their scientists frantically studied every scrap of human tech they could salvage. "We cannot fight them," Velter told an emergency session of the Council. "Our fleets, our tactics, our science, it's all based on outdated understanding. The humans have stepped beyond conventional physics. If we don't talk, we'll fall behind forever." A neutral conference center was constructed on the moon. Their President Davis met High Counselor Velter face to face. Delegates from dozens of civilizations attended the historic summit. For 2 weeks, humanity and the Galactic Council negotiated the future. The result was known as the Treaty of Soul. Its terms were clear. Humanity would be recognized as a sovereign galactic power with defined territory. In return, humans agreed to share limited dark matter applications strictly for peaceful exploration and development.